Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Rejuvi 45. Rejuvi 45 is the community for modern leadership, and we are so glad that you are here. My name is Regina Hepp, and today I am joined by the great Jeannie Coyle.
Take a bow.
I get such a kick out of introducing you as the great Jeannie Coyle because you just squeal with delight when I say it, and it brings me such joy when I do.
Yeah. Well, it sets an incredible expectation, but hey, I'll try to live up to it.
And you always do. For those of you who are listening to Jeannie the first time, or have listened to me describe her as the first time, I always say that Jeannie, in my opinion, is one of the best consultants in the world, number one. And number two, when you bring her in a room, you better be prepared to go from 0 to 60 miles really, really fast, because that's exactly what she does. So, hey, Jeannie, should we go 0 to 60 miles an hour really fast today?
Sure, vroom vroom.
This is for those of you who are logging into us live today, or watching recordings or reels from this event. This is a special day for Rejuvi 45 because this is the start of volume 3. And what does that mean? So that means 2 years ago, to the date, we brought Rejuvi 45 programming to the business community throughout the globe. And I think, and we come to the marketplace 3 times a month, every Thursday, and we've done that now. We finished 2 volumes. Volume number 1 was 2021, 2022. Volume number 2 was 2022, 2023, and now volume 3 will be 2023 and 2024. And so I just am really, really happy, Jeannie, that you are with us. And we're doing a topic today called, always kick off our new volumes with a topic called a leadership festival. And as I was reflecting on a few of my comments to get ready for today, I thought about how the meaning of that has changed over the course of the past 2 years, from volume 1 to volume 3. And I think about what was happening when we first rolled out the modern leadership community 2 years ago. And, number one, we were in the midst of a pandemic, right? Think about that, October of 2021. So we were in the midst of a pandemic. The many isms crises were rearing their heads, right? And the geopolitical and economic landscapes were shifting. And we heard this phrase 2 years ago called "the future of work is coming," and that's when we started Rejuvi 45, because we knew, with all of this turmoil, not only based on past results, but we knew with all of this turmoil that businesses and leaders were really going to be challenged with new ways of developing their leaders and developing the business in and of itself. But that's where we started. And here we are. And we're no longer talking about the future of work is coming. The future of work has arrived. Can you, it's all around us, right?
Right.
It's right there.
Yeah, and at a level of intensity that it can no longer be ignored.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said with it a level of intensity that it can no longer be ignored. I couldn't agree with you more. And you, about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, you sent me an idea, or kind of a metaphor, and you were talking about the game called Jenga. You were talking about helping people think about dealing with and managing through and fresh approaches to the moment in a non-Jenga kind of way.
Right.
Jeannie, what did you mean by all of that?
Well, I've never played Jenga, but I've seen it, and it reminds me of organizations of the past, postmodern. It's wooden blocks that are put together in a tight, logical way, and they
Like a
the game
tower,
is
kind of
like
like
a
a
tower.
tower.
It's a high
Mhm.
tower, and the idea is to take pieces and parts out and see if you can keep it from falling over. But if you think about the architecture of a Jenga tower, it's parts and pieces, and it's more like we used to think about organizations. And what's happened, well, with Jenga, it's steady state. If you don't do anything, it works. But if you start moving pieces around, if someone gets it with their elbow, tumble, tumble, tumble. And I think we need a similar shift. So I started thinking about something else. I've been reading about dome homes. We have a neighbor who actually has one, and I went through it. But I started to understand why they work so well in the world that is here now. They're a bunch of triangles, so they carry load better than a stick house would do. And what they will do is they will withstand winds of 200 miles per hour. And they're now putting shingles on them that are metal, so they do well in fires. So, for anyone who lives in parts of the United States where that could happen, obviously a dome home will anticipate what's happening and you will survive. And so I think our organizations have to rethink, reset, re architect for what is here and really coming on faster and faster. You talked a little bit about the external shocks, and they've just gotten so much coverage, but we aren't through with them. And in fact, some of them are going to accelerate. So organizations and leaders need to, some you can anticipate and plan for, some you're going to be surprised. But you need to prepare an organization and a leadership at all levels to be able to say that.
Mhm.
In fact, my recent thinking about a dome is it kind of fits what I would call the social architecture you need now too, because it's flatter and people can see each other and you can get together easily. So if you think about Jenga, when I was in business, you always had the executives at the top of the tower. And that really indicated they had the power, they had the smarts, and they would delegate it to other people. But in the world now, a lot of people need to have power and to think through and to reset and respond. So I think there are internal shocks as well too. Some
Mhm.
have been rumbling along for a while. So if you think about it, we've been talking for a long time. People want meaning, right? They want to be able to impact results that count. They want a boss who is trustworthy. They want a boss who will create the environment where they can do their best work and where they can learn and develop. So we've known that for a while. Some companies have responded, but the news is not good. I shared with you the HP survey
Mhm. You
that,
did. Mhm.
yeah. And so in the
It
US,
had it, that particular survey had a really shocking title. I can't remember it is. Do you have it in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me, but I think it used the word grim.
Yeah. Mhm.
Grim is one of those kind of things. But in the United States, only 28% of knowledge workers say they have a healthy relationship with their work. And
Mhm.
then they bring bosses into the picture. 83% say they're willing to earn less to be happier at work. And many say they'll take an 11% pay cut to work for a good leaner. So shout
Yeah.
out to CEOs and CFOs. Imagine what that could do to your margin. You
Mhm.
have to earn it, but just imagine what you could do. So that's one of the shocks.
Well, I'm sitting here listening to these sorts of things where people are searching for, you listed off four things where the news is grim, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
people are searching for meaning, right? They're searching for meaning in their work. Number one. Number two, they want to make have meaningful impact because of their work. They want a trustworthy managerial relationship. They want a trustworthy relationship with their boss. And then the last one, they want to feel as though they can bring their best work, right? They can do their
Right.
best work on, on any given day. And in all four of those categories, in all four of those elements, the news is very, very grim.
Hmm.
And what I would add to it is that while that's how the collective people feel, that's how the collective we as a people feel, what we also know is that almost all leaders, and I'm not talking like majority 51%, no,
Hmm.
almost all leaders, 93% of them, McKinsey says, um, um, do not feel like they have the skill nor the culture to
Hmm.
tackle the work that is in front of them and the challenges that the future of work has brought. So
Right.
you've just
Scary.
summarized what some of the challenges are that the future of work has brought. Meanwhile, leaders themselves are, them too are the people who feel those things, but they're the ones that our organizations look to start to pull us out of this mess, and they themselves most of them are saying, okay, now, but wait a minute.
Help
I
me. Help me. Right.
oh my gosh, how do I even do that? So, I think that this is such a fantastic conversation, and I want to go back to the notion of your dome home, and how I kicked you off with the opening question of today is, what did you mean by Jenga? And I would summarize by this, that, these things that we're talking about, it doesn't feel too much like a festival. Just like,
Yeah.
who
It
wants
feels
to,
like one of those rock places where all of a sudden people are, putting people over each other and it's
oh my gosh.
pandemonium, right?
Yeah, it's
Pandemonium.
just, yeah, like who wants to go to this grim festival? And I think that one of the things that we talked about was that because this is how people feel. This is how leaders currently feel. You can't play Jenga anymore. Like, you
Right.
can't think of your organization and developing leaders to manage this tower of blocks and thinking that solutions is like playing Jenga, like where you can take out one little part, and then go, okay, I took that out, and now I'm going to replace it with this solution to see if it
Right.
works. We're talking
Right.
shifting from playing Jenga to a dome home as a way to move forward. It's a complete shift.
Right, right. And I just want to add just one thing because it's so much in the news. Technology has always changed jobs.
Mhm.
And there have been robotics and kiosks and chatbots, and they've had a significant change on jobs already. So the future of work has been around for a while, but AI is changing the game. And I read just, I think yesterday, McKinsey says by 2030, AI could automate 70% of business activities. So in the articles, they talk a lot about the future of work of workers, but they don't talk too much about the future of work for leaders.
Mhm.
And I keep saying, okay, guys, if the work's going to change, leaders have to change. If the environment is shifting, leaders have to get the help to adjust to it. And in this dome home metaphor, if you don't do something about the leaders, you could invest millions of dollars in changing the work of the workers, but you're not going to get the outcomes that you want.
Mhm.
So it's like the silent voice right now. And
Mhm.
so, yay Rejuvi for stepping up and resetting and reshifting and providing a set of tools and a set of support that can deal with that because it's such a critical piece, such a critical piece.
Um, well, and not just yay for Rejuvi, I would say yay for Rejuvi's board,
Mhm.
because you sit on our board with four other esteemed, very experienced business people. And, I think that one of the reasons why I say yay for Rejuvi's board is because, when you think about the future of work has arrived, and you just used this phrase called what's the future of work for, and so therefore what's the future of work for leaders. I think one of the most fun conversations you and I have had in the past couple of weeks is around, you need analytics and technology companies inside of the modern leadership space, like Rejuvi, right? You need companies like Rejuvi who are using AI and other things in order to help leaders. But one of the small shifts that we've made, and which you were saying bravo, you were applauding us for, was we can't just say that we are an analytics and technology company that helps leaders, teams, and businesses because the future of work has arrived, right? We are this company that helps with fresh approaches and new know-how to navigate through the future of work. So we can't just say we're an analytics and technology company, because that would be, in my mind, just saying, okay, we're going to look at the shiny penny. We're going to look at, the bells and whistles, called AI, and the entire families of analytics and technology, and figure out how to use them. If we do that, then we're still playing Jenga. And so I love the conversation that we had around Rejuvi is a modeling analytics and technology company to help leaders, teams, and businesses inside of because the future of work has arrived. Do you know what I mean? But you have to have that activity called it's modeling, and then it's the analytics, and then it's the technology. It really has to work in that order. And it's like it creates this triangle. I never even thought about this triangle of interesting things. And guess what? If you take a look at a dome home,
it's
right?
all triangles.
It's all triangles. It actually provides more strength, more resilience when when any environment, internal or external, gets challenging. It provides more strength to withstand what's coming at the organization, so it's got to be all three.
Yeah, and I love that. I've had many decades of leadership and consulting experience under my belt here. And I said this before to you, I've waited for a long time for something that in the modeling and in the architecture of the product spans the people part and the business part of both organization and leadership. And when I was this young whippersnapper person, my first head of HR for the Traveler's Check division of American Express, it was an eye-opener for me because I would have these supervisors come to me and say, Jeannie, do you want me to manage people or do you want me to get results? And so they were telling me this as a binary, and I would say both, of course. But decades go on, and still that binary thing has existed. So in the modeling of Rejuvi, you're bringing those two parts of the triangle together. And then I'm going to introduce something else that you put into your modeling. I'm going to call it context. And I mentioned I have a favorite Dilbert cartoon. So I'm going to tell you a Dilbert cartoon. So the pointy-haired boss is reading a leadership book, and he tells Dilbert, I really know how to be a great leader because I've read about the rules of leadership. And Dilbert says, allow me to put that in context. There are probably about 10,000 books about leadership, and each one has a different approach. And yet this one author has found a magic formula to transform you from a gullible baboon into a great leader. And that makes sense because all great leaders throughout history achieved success by reading a random book. And the pointy-haired old boss, I don't like context. And Gilbert says it isn't popular. And I tell you what, it's still not popular because, you do business and you do people, and then you have to keep looking at context. You have to be looking at what's coming from the outside. You have to be looking at what's coming from the inside. And you need to give leaders a blueprint of what they should do operationally, how they should think, and what they should do. And so I won't go into the detail of both architecture, but both of those, I call them flexible frameworks, come together and threaded throughout is context. And, one of my favorite things is the organizational part,
Mhm.
because so many people go from strategy to implementation and they
Mhm.
miss the step of look out, look
Right,
in, what's
right.
going on.
Again, look out. Mhm.
And then they don't go to work.
Mhm.
Well, work always need reshaping, and it always needed an environment that supported powering people up to do the right thing. It always required that, but it very rarely got the attention. And
Mhm.
so this is really triangular, it's three-dimensional, and Rejuvi is has an architecture to span those things because they're complicated, but you kind of cut through all that and you give people the path and the signals to be able to do that uh,
Mhm.
just in time. It's past
Mhm.
due, but just in time, just in time.
Well, first of all, any Rejuvi 45 conversation complete with a Dilbert comic strip is, it's going to be a good one. And I think the whole story about context is really important. Um, and why a modern leadership development company like Rejuvi would say you have to have modeling, and you have to have analytics, and you have to have technology. And I want to talk about why all three of those things are important second. But first, I want to talk about, this thing that you mentioned called the context. Because if we don't deal with the context, then what's really happening is we're continuing to play Jenga.
Right, right.
And there are so many great contributors, right? We know, for example, leaders themselves are part of we as a people. And so they themselves feel this way where, you talked about they're looking for meaning, right? They want purpose, in their work. Just like people in general, just like their teams, their team members do. But leaders are responsible for pulling the we as a people out of the moment that we're in. They're trying to figure out and navigate this a pathway, right? So I just don't know how we keep playing Jenga like we
Mhm.
have in the past when we know that playing Jenga has created a situation where almost all of our leaders, 93% of them, don't feel like they have the skill, nor do they believe that their organizations have the culture in order to tackle all these things
Mhm.
in a way that makes everyone feel great about the direction that they're headed. And I've run into so many scenarios where you talk about the idea of new modeling because the future of work has arrived. And there are so many individuals who continue to say, "Oh, I'm not really sure I want to play with that, play the I'm not sure I want to live in a dome home, right? I'm not
Yeah.
sure I want to build a dome home. I want to keep playing Jenga." And they'll say things to us like, "Oh, we see exactly what Rejuvi's trying to do. But here's the thing, I work in human resources and we do the people work. The business
Yeah.
is the business work." So in some cases, this inability to take a look at what's happened.
Right. Right.
Context can no longer be
Uh,
looked at by saying you look at one slice of the system, you look at one piece of the
right.
Jenga, because I think that the modeling that can now actually help our leaders in a dome home kind of way says it's one that takes into account multiple growth models. You can
Hmm.
take a look at the growth model of a human, of any one of those, we the people, and you can start to understand what the building blocks are to create great strength at
Right.
the human
Right.
level. But you also have to take a look at the growth model for the business, because it too is a living organism. And you have to understand all of the parts and pieces that
Right.
need to be put in place in order that it is healthy. It's just that this model for human growth and this model for business growth are deeply related. And they're
Right.
related in ways that sometimes are supportive, and then sometimes they are conflicting. And that's what makes the leadership job so hard. Like
Right.
sometimes these things will make you have to make decisions that might be in the best interest of the whole, which may mean that this group has to backtrack a little bit or this group has to backtrack a little bit. But that's the beauty of modern leadership, is
Right.
understanding that new models actually exist.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna say, no, that's not for me, because we do this piece of the work for the organization called the people piece, and the business does the business piece, you're gonna keep playing Jenga and you're gonna keep finding yourself in a
Yeah.
situation where almost everybody says, yeah, I don't really have the skills, and we don't really have the culture to kind of tackle this grim problem out here
Right.
called meaning, impact, trustworthy, best work kinds of stuff. It's
Yeah.
shocking to
Yeah.
me.
Well, it's very hard to reset and rethink. And again, I've been in business for a very long time. And I think people, particularly some leaders, are very comfortable with what I would call highly analytical. Let's think about the strategy. Let's do the finances. Let's look at structure, but it usually used to be just the chart. And
Mhm,
then you look at the other things, which is more the social architecture, the values of the people, the leadership style, what they
mhm,
do. That part is hard, and you put the two of them together, and it's hard. And one of my favorite stories is about Henry Ford. I mean, he was a genius at his time when he was creating the best production line. And he had the River Rouge plant where ore came here and cars came out the other. So he knew the strategy, he knew the process, but he was befuddled. And he said, I thought I was hiring hands, but people came instead. And Ford adjusted, but a lot of companies. But I don't think Henry ever had him in it because his mind was so set on the production in the hands. He just couldn't see the rest of the picture. And I think a lot of companies who've had trouble resetting, whether it's Kodak or a lot of companies, they just, it's too hard. It's too hard, but it's not as hard as you think if you have the right modeling and if you have the courage. And quite frankly, if you look out and pay attention to the signals, I loved your last conversation with Harold Weens because he's a CEO who's brilliant at looking out at the signals and understanding how it's going to impact the business. And he also is one who creates a trusting environment and gives people what they need to do the work, the right work, and hold them
mhm.
accountable. So it's
Yeah.
possible. We have leaders who do it, but bridging this divide, the both the people and the business in the context, you have to do all three of them. And
Yes, you do.
so it's chess, it's not checkers. But we got people doing tic-tac-toe. I got the new program. I've got this. We have a new financial whiz-bang thing to help us understand if we're on the right track. Not going to do it.
Mhm.
Not going to do it.
That's
And
right.
particularly since all companies are becoming really software companies,
Mhm,
technology companies, knowledge workers. We used to say there were, people who did blue collar work, and then we had knowledge workers. Just look what's going to happen to that in the next 5 to 10 years. almost everything is going to be knowledge work.
Mhm.
And if you don't make these adjustments with your organization, your so-called social architecture, your organization, if you don't make it, you're going to be very, very handicapped.
Mhm.
You may not make it. You may not make it.
Yeah, yeah. I love, it's like when I'm pulling together the kind of this, what we've learned about positioning analytics and technology, not as a shiny penny. If you want to position all of these AI analytic and technology tools, you have
Mm-hmm.
to start with modeling, because modeling helps you to set the context, right?
Mm-hmm.
Context in my mind, I love this. I didn't know you were going to transition from Jenga to dome homes, but it's in my mind, it's absolutely like brilliant, because when you have modeling and analytics and technology, you create this triangle. The triangle gives the dome home
Right.
strength to really
Right.
withstand anything. And I think that what that does on a just a day-to-day level for leaders is it does help them to set context. And when you have context, when you're helping them with something that meets them where they are, with the real problems and struggles that they have today, then you're able to better help them direction and decision. I mean, that's what it's all about, giving leaders the things that they need, the information that they need, the data points that they need to be able to say, then here's
Right.
where we need to go, and here's what we need to do all along the way. If you don't have modeling, if you don't start there, your analytics and your technology can't set context. And if you don't have context, your leaders are not going to be able to direction and decision like you want them to. I mean, it's just,
Right.
your dome home will fall flat. Your Jenga tower will fall down, just as we know they
That's
have
right.
in the past.
Right. And continuous. I love the idea of setting expectation. We all need to continually reset and learn.
Mhm.
And positioning the information is ongoing so you can keep adjusting. We
Mhm.
used to be people go to a course and they were expected to change, or they'd read a book and they'd have the 5 tips, or something else would happen. But magic wouldn't happen. And
Mhm.
magic is not an event. It's this continual learning and adjusting with context and
Mhm.
business. I mean, bringing all those things together.
Mhm.
And so this is like incredible, just incredible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just kind of thought of something. I know that there have been a lot of conversations this week, but with the notion, one of the conversations that came up this week was the idea of making sure that, as you are leading your businesses, there's fierce eye to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And right. So that has come up in conversations. And one of the things I want to do is, I want to, it's actually a great time for that to be happening, because I'm going to actually transition to the Rejuvi platform for a moment. And anytime we have a Rejuvi 45 session, we want to serve what you said, Jeannie, which is, things are hard, but they're not as hard as you might think, as long
Mm-hmm.
as you have the modeling, the analytics, and the technology to help you do that. And so that's why we always like to, at least for a portion of the Rejuvi 45 sessions, is to do a demo. And we're going to do a very short demo today. And let me get here. So for those of you who are new to Rejuvi, what you're going to do is oh my goodness, I've got all kinds of things open here. You're gonna go to rejuviventure.com. And when you go to rejuviventure.com, in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a login. And you'll log in. And so you can see here that I've already done that. And when you log into the Rejuvi platform, you're going to see options. And in the top right-hand corner, those options are represented by color, because butterscotch is for those who are at a senior level inside the organization. Red is for your folks who are building books of business. They're your sales leaders. Purple are for your service leaders. Blue is for team leaders, and green to becoming are for your expert leaders. But this is really as far as we're going to go in today's demo. We're not going to go into anything beyond this, because, when we think about the modeling, the analytics and technology that are now available to help you, you don't have to go any deeper than this. Because what a modern leadership platform should allow you to do is, number one, to have you to start thinking about your leader population as your customers. Right. So modern leadership development now starts to think about your leaders as customers. And so you start thinking about this Rejuvi platform, and the first thing it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, Jennifer Myers, in this case, I've logged into a company called BlackRock Steel, where Jennifer Myers is the administrator. And it's going to ask Jennifer a question. How do you want to serve your leadership bench today? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to leverage modeling, you're trying to leverage analytics, you're trying to leverage technology in order that your leadership bench increases its capacity, that it becomes the dome home so that it can withstand anything that is coming at it, internal or external. And to that end, you have to think about your leaders as a customer. And so you have to think about the leader population, making sure that you have a real-time understanding of the strength of that dome home. You have to have a real-time understanding of how much, leadership capacity do we actually have. And if you don't have answers to those questions, your modern leadership platform should be able to do some data collection for you, so that you can have a baseline understanding of the strength of your dome home, of how much leadership capacity you actually have. And once you've got that data collected, or you've taken the data that you have and you've mapped it back to modern leadership, you should be able to get to a point where you say, okay, let's run some reporting and some analytics on that. Can I run a report for this person? Yes. Can I run a modern leadership report for this group? Yes. Can I run a Delta report in terms of how our modern leadership capability has changed over time, either contracted or expanded? Can I do that? Yes. Your analytics, I'm going to come back to this in a moment, but your modern leadership platform should also have resources for you. Think of training resources, think of development resources for individuals, groups, and the entire organization to increase its leadership capacity. But I'm going to want to come back and finish with reporting and analytics, because what this should also be able to do, your modern leadership dome home, your modern leadership platform. I think I'm going to call this, Jeannie, based on your feedback, we're going to call it the modern leadership dome home instead of platform. It's so much more exciting. But you should be able to go back to your analytics, and you should be able to say, okay, we had a baseline. And we made decisions on helping our leaders differently based on new tools to manage through and navigate through the future of work. So now we're doing another point in time measurement to understand how much capacity we have. So your analytics should be able to run those deltas for you. And most importantly, with today's set of advanced analytic tools, you should be able to take those deltas and with a high degree of confidence, be able to relate, correlate, and causate those deltas to the outcomes that matter to your organization. And they are not only people outcomes. We're so used to thinking about leadership capacity changes only relating to people outcomes like engagement or turnover, which are hugely important to an organization. But you should be able to relate, correlate, and causate your deltas to those things. In addition, it should be related, correlated, and causated to operational KPIs and outcomes, as well as to value KPIs into outcomes. So I love the idea of a dome home. I love the idea of a modern leadership platform, because what your modern leadership platform should be able to do is deliver to you the modeling, the analytics, and the technology so that you can build your leadership capacity over time for your modern leadership bench in all parts and pieces of the organization. And as you grow it, that dome home, that modern leadership platform, should allow you to understand exactly what that growth or change or retraction actually means to you by way of outcomes, right? That's the very simple demo that we have today. That's what a modern leadership platform can now do for you.
I'd just like to add one thing, the fact that you can do this much faster than people expect, and you can do it over and over and over. Because we talked a lot about things changing internally, externally, jobs changing. This is not going to go at a slow speed.
No.
It's not going to be entirely predictable. Some of it you can predict better. You can look at the context. But people were not used to being able to cycle, reset, rethink,
Right.
do something about it. And with the kind of resources you're talking about, that is now capable. You can do it. Organizations can do it. And so that's an incredible amount of power, not only for the organization, but now that I've got you all hooked onto the Dome Home, you can share power in this kind of situation much better than the old Jenga, where the guys and gals on top say, this is the
Much more
strategy, this
fluid.
is the outcome. And, we'll wait a year to kind of go through it again. Sorry, I don't think that's the way the world is going to work anymore. So speed and circularity is wonderful.
Speed and circularity is I'm so glad that you brought that up, because, if we take a look at, um, what does this moment call to? How do we think about a leadership festival when the future of work has arrived, and everyone, all people, all leaders, all businesses are trying to find their sea legs. And in order to move forward, you're going to need organizations to be able to step up and serve them differently than they have in a past, in a dome home kind of way, not in a Jenga kind of way. And so we've talked about dome homes having modeling, analytics, and technology. Jeannie, this is why I like you bringing up speed, because modeling helps us to set the context, right? Analytics helps you with the speed, because if you have the advanced analytics processes, tools kind of built into the dome home, you're going to be able to not only use data, but you're going to be able to organize the data in an understandable way much more swiftly than you ever have in the past. And what does technology bring us? Technology brings you a way to scale. So you should have the right model, you should have the fast analytics, and you should have the technology that allows you to scale this to all parts and pieces of the organization, because that's where your leaders are now, on all parts of the pieces of the organization. So I'm so glad that you brought that speed up, because context is to modeling as speed is to analytics, as scaling is to technology. And right there is a powerful triangle that creates the dome home.
Yeah, great. Well, you have another reason to come visit me. I'll have my neighbor show you his dome home.
Are there other phrases that people use for a dome home? Like I think in Colorado, I think it starts with a Y. I can't think of the word, but I see these kind of round structures. But are they called anything else than a dome home? I guess that's my question.
I don't know. I've got a couple of websites I've been looking at. I'm not going to build when I've got my log home, so
You
I'm
just
not going to
built your
do it.
log home, right?
Yeah, I'm going to
Okay.
build a dome home. Maybe I would buy one next. It depends what happens. But I'll send you a couple websites. One of the companies I'm most interested in is in Minnesota.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. right?
Okay.
Um, well, I think to kind of wrap up today's session, we only need this phrase, and that is, it can feel like this is, given all that's going on, it's not much of a leadership festival. But the message is really different. And the message is, with modeling analytics and technology, modern leadership is the new leadership festival. So doable, so affordable, so democratized, right? Modern leadership is the new leadership festival.
Yay.
Yep.
We
Jeannie,
should have some music at this point.
I know we need the Rob will come on here just a little bit and bring the closing reel on. We need that kind of right now. But as always, thank you so much for being first of all, thank you for being one of the esteemed members of the Rejuvi board, and thank you for being with us in these select Rejuvi 45 sessions that are so important to us. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always so enjoyable.
To everyone that is listening, know that we will be back next week with session number 2 of volume 3 of Rejuvi 45. That will be on Thursday, October 12th. And our topic will be channeling Mr. Bannister. Until then, be well, and we will talk to you soon.